Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. For those of you who don't know, I recently put out a video where, in my capacity as a lawyer, I relied on Johnny Depp's declaration and evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was physically abused by Amber Heard throughout the course of their relationship. If you haven't watched that video yet, please make sure you do, as it goes hand in hand with this one. I've linked it down below for your convenience, and I will also recommend it up here. That video was very well received, so I'd like to thank everyone for their encouraging and positive comments. It really means a lot to me, especially as a brand new YouTuber. Your support means so much, so thank you. Today, I will submit to you, relying on Amber Heard's declaration and evidence and Johnny Depp's declaration and evidence, that Amber's allegations of physical abuse made against Johnny were entirely fabricated. This video will be split into two different segments in order to avoid it getting too long, because there is so much to cover and I want to do it justice. In part one, which is this video, submissions will cover the period from the beginning of their relationship to December 2015. The second part will take over from the 21st of April 2016 onwards. I also want to point out that as part of my profession, I will only be sticking to relevant and material facts. So some detail might be left out for the purpose of being as efficient and concise as possible. All right, let's get straight into it. Early on in her declaration, Amber states that around late 2012, she had started to call Johnny the monster as a result of the abusive behavior that he displayed when he was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. She stated that it was around this time that she had started to document, in the form of photographs and videos, evidence of the injuries and destruction that Johnny left in the wake of his abuse. Take note of this particular claim, because it will be very important throughout the course of this video. Starting from late 2012, Amber alleged that she had started to become physically assaulted by Johnny. As time progressed, her allegations became more colorful and violent in description. On the 8th of March of 2013, Amber claims that Johnny assaulted her so violently that blood spattered from her lip onto the wall. She submitted a text message marked Exhibit 1 as supporting evidence of this claim. This evidence immediately raises alarm bells to me as a lawyer. If a victim alleges, such as Amber did, that they started to document all of the injuries that were caused by their abusive partner, and then the only evidence that they had to submit in support of their claims was this incredibly vague text message, I would start grilling them about why they didn't document the injury and instead opted for, quite frankly, a useless text message. This is why I told you to hang on to the fact that she said she started to document these injuries early on. Here we are, early in 2013, with no documented evidence of her physical injuries. Amber then goes on to claim that on the 24th of May 2014, while Johnny was once again allegedly under the influence of drugs and alcohol, he physically assaulted her on a plane. The way she worded it made it seem like Johnny's handlers, as she referred to them, were present on the plane with them when this incident allegedly took place. Presumably, this would include Johnny's assistant at the time, Steven. I mention him because he becomes relevant when we discuss the evidence that Amber has submitted in support of this claim. Amber attaches two text messages marked Exhibits 2 and 3. Exhibit 2 is a text conversation that took place between Amber and Johnny. Nowhere in the message does Johnny admit to physically assaulting Amber. He apologizes for his behavior, but an apology does not necessarily mean that he hit her, as she claims. People apologize for things that are far less serious than physical assault. For example, for being in a bad mood, for yelling at someone, or for their drunken behavior. In Exhibit 3, we see a text message conversation that took place between Amber and Johnny's assistant, Steven. The most damning parts of these texts is when Steven tells Amber, "When I told him he kicked you, he cried." But we're not told whether Steven witnessed Johnny kicking Amber. So it's unclear whether he was telling Johnny what he had personally witnessed firsthand, or whether he was simply relaying Amber's side of the story. And we know very well that what Amber told Steven could have been a lie. If her allegations are in fact true, Why isn't Stephen on the witness list? It seems odd that she once again relied on text messages in support of her claims rather than concrete evidence such as photographs or witness testimony. Moving on to the 17th of August 2014. On this day, Amber claims that Johnny violently assaulted her while he was under the influence. The only evidence that she attached in support of this claim is a photograph of a splintered door, which she alleged that Johnny had kicked. This is marked Exhibit 4. Once again, no photographic evidence of her injuries were provided in support of her claim. She further states in her declaration that Dr. Kipper and Nurse Debbie observed the injuries that Johnny had caused her, and yet they have not made any statements or provided any evidence in support of this claim. Hey guys, it's editing Nora from the future. I just realized that I forgot to mention the supporting evidence that Amber did attach in relation to the August incident in the Bahamas. She attached a series of text messages that she exchanged with Nurse Debbie and Dr. Kipper, although he didn't personally participate as far as I can see. It was just Debbie. But in these messages, Amber claims that Johnny was so mad that he pushed her. So I just wanted to point out that, again, just because she says something in a text message, that doesn't mean that it actually happened. I realized that I brushed over a minor incident that allegedly happened on the 25th of January 2015 in Tokyo, Japan. On that day, Amber alleges that Johnny was physically abusive towards her in their hotel room, but once again, she fails to provide any supporting evidence in relation to this claim. On to the 3rd and 4th of March 2015. If you are well versed with the details of this case, or if you've watched my first video, you will know that this is the incident during which the tip of Johnny's finger was severed when Amber Heard threw a glass bottle of vodka at him. In her statement, Amber denies having ever done this and instead claims that Johnny severed his own finger when he smashed a plastic phone into smithereens.
She did. It was a phone. It missed. There's been bottles thrown. And she admits to me, she threw a bottle on me. She did first.
She flips this incident entirely upside down. She alleges that it was Johnny who was incredibly physically abusive towards her on this day. Amongst other things, Amber claims that she was stripped naked, was slammed against a countertop, and was slipping and sliding on broken shards of glass that were cutting her all over. She goes on to state that she had a busted lip, a swollen nose, and cuts all over her body, which were reportedly witnessed by multiple people. And yet, the only supporting evidence that she submitted are photographs of the messages that Johnny had written all over the house in paint and a photo of scratches on her left arm, which, according to the head of Johnny's security at the time, Jerry Judge, may he rest in peace, were clearly self-inflicted. And you can hear him say this in this recording.
She has scratches on her left arm, which Debbie told me about. I've looked at it. And I've seen those scratches before with other people, and as far as I'm concerned, they're self-inflicted. I'm convinced about it, they're self-inflicted.
Jerry seems certain that they were self-inflicted, but for the sake of argument, let's play devil's advocate and assume that she did indeed sustain these cuts as a result of her fight with Johnny. Why did she only document these specific cuts and ignore the host of other injuries that she allegedly sustained as a result of Johnny's abuse? Remember that she stated that she had a swollen nose, a busted lip, and cuts throughout her body, and yet she once again failed to document any of these injuries. Furthermore, when staff arrived at the house, including Dr. Kipper and Nurse Debbie, why weren't they concerned with Amber's welfare? If you hear the audio clip recording, no one seems to be concerned about her, and everyone repeats that they're worried about Johnny and that he's priority right now. There's no mention of any injuries that were observable on her. She did not receive any medical attention. One would assume that if someone was covered in the vast injuries that she described, that would have alarmed staff members and led them to care for these injuries. But none of that happened. And why is that? I think we all know that the answer is very clear. Now we are still in March of 2015, except now we find ourselves back in Los Angeles. Amber alleges that this is the only time that she had ever laid a finger on Johnny. She alleges that she had punched Johnny in anticipated defense of her sister. I use the word anticipated because Johnny never laid a finger on Whitney. It is also important to note that Johnny was still in a cast at this time. Amber attached a video of her deposition in support of her claims, marked Exhibit 10.
No. Punch Johnny Depp with a closed fist in the history of your relationship with John.
One time, Johnny was hitting me, and he was hitting me hard and repeatedly, and I was screaming. Security walks in, and they don't do anything about it. And he makes this motion when Jerry Judge yells box, or Sean, I can't remember who it was, and all we had was a little bit of separation, and my sister runs down the stairs. We're on a landing in between two flights of stairs.
Miss Heard, I must interrupt you because I've asked you a yes or
Then
no question.
withdraw your question then, because
Miss
she's
Heard,
answering.
prior to today's date, have you ever hit Johnny Depp?
He was about to push my sister down the stairs. She was attempting to break us up. I am protective over my baby sister. When he laid hands on her, I don't know what I did, but I know I jumped in between the actions that I saw could lead to a fatal injury to my sister. She was standing on the top of a flight of the stairs, and she has never hurt anyone in her life, and she does not deserve to be pushed down the flight of stairs. And it looked like she was about to be. And I would have done what anybody who has a child or a sister would have done. I acted defensively in her life. I saw her standing on top of a flight of stairs and trying to interrupt a fight in between him and I. I don't know what part of my body I put in between me and him and her. But I would have done anything. I would have done anything to prevent her from being pushed down a flight of stairs.
As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I made an entire video where I attempt to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Amber physically assaulted Johnny multiple times throughout their relationship. So that video in itself is a rebuttal to this particular claim of hers. So again, if you haven't watched it, please make sure that you do. One thing that I didn't do in that video is include the recorded conversation that took place between Johnny and Amber, in which she admits to physically assaulting him on more than one occasion.
There can be no physical violence towards each other.
I agree about the physical violence. I can't promise you that I'll be perfect. I can't promise you I won't get physical again. God, I sometimes get so mad I lose it. I can promise you I'm gonna do everything to change.
Amber, I lost a finger, man. Come on. I had a mineral can of mineral spirits thrown at my nose.
You can please tell people that it was a fair fight and see what the jury and judge think. Tell the world, Johnny. Tell them, Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, man, I'm a victim too of domestic violence, and
yes.
It's a fair fight. And see how many people believe or side with you.
It doesn't matter if it's a fair fight.
Exactly, because you're bigger and you're stronger. And so when I say that I thought you could kill me, that doesn't mean you counter with you also that you lost your own finger.
Do you believe you abused me physically?
Do I physically believe? Do I believe I physically abused you?
Yes.
Do you know I'm 115? Well, not anymore, but I was 115 pounds. I'm a 115-pound woman, and you're going to say I have the capacity to abuse.
That's not the question. That's not the question.
Have I ever been able to knock you off of your feet?
You started.
Off your balance?
You started these things.
You're going to get up on the stand, Johnny, and say she started it? Really? I have never been able to overpower you. That's the difference between me and you.
Why did you try?
And that's the difference that the whole world and the jury and the judge will see, is that there is a very big difference between me and you.
I'm not going to be in a physical altercation with you.
Then don't.
You hit me last night.
What about all the other times you split? Come on, you cannot act like that's about that. It's
Well,
not.
on a plane, I can't split.
No, and you hit back. So don't act like you don't
I
participate.
pushed you.
I'm not going to get into the details of that fight. You and I both know that you split when there is no physical violence involved.
You were screaming at me.
I'm not going to validate my actions last night. I feel very bad.
No, I'm
for
talking
how I
in
reacted.
Toronto.
I did not start screaming until you said all this. You poke an animal enough, it is eventually, doesn't matter how friendly it is
That's
or how
not
cool.
true. Well, it's not true. I'm not the one who throws pots and
Those are different.
whatever
That's,
the else at me.
that's different. That's one does not negate the other. That's irrelevant. It's a complete non sequitur. Just because I've thrown pots and pans does not mean that you come and knock on the door.
Vases.
Just because there are vases does not mean that you come and knock on the door.
Really, I should just let you throw.
I'm not saying that. You're saying that. You're putting words in my mouth.
The only time I ever threw anything at you was when you
Are you?
threw the cans at me in Australia.
Why are you trying to justify who throws things based on
Because
whether or
that-
not you come knocking on the door? I don't
Because
get
that
why
is a
one's the other.
irrational and violent maneuver.
How
So
does
a
one
man would
inform
want
the
to
other?
get out of that area so that he doesn't get so angry that he actually does pop the wife. You're just afraid that the truth will come out.
What truth?
That you lied.
What are you talking about? I didn't have a thing to lie about. What are you talking about? Every fight, there's a new thing that you've convinced yourself is a lie.
I said to you,
You're-
Amber, tell Travis what you just did. Did you just did you punch me in the jaw? Did you kick? Did you? Did you? And you wouldn't say I said, I don't know what you're
Oh, so I
talking about.
lied.
Never
I see the
never
lie.
happened.
I see the lie.
I watched you lie.
You called me a liar.
I watched you lie. I
You're
heard it. I was
bullshit.
right there.
There's no what. You still haven't told me what lie it is.
I said to Travis, I said to you, hey, tell Travis what just happened. You
Oh,
be
you told me
careless.
to do it. You
Yeah.
told me to. You said, go do that.
I said, no, tell him what just
And
happened.
I lied.
And that you punched me in the
You're right.
fucking thing, and you
You
hit me
figured
in the
it
face,
out.
and you said, no, fucking, no, I didn't. What the fuck are you talking about? And I
didn't
watched
punch
you lie, and then
I
I
didn't punch you,
and
by
then
the
I-
way. I'm sorry that I didn't
punched
hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. It was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched.
Don't tell me what it feels like to be punched.
You know, even a lot of fights have been around a long time. I know. Yeah.
No, when you fucking have a closed
You
fist.
didn't get punched. You got hit. I'm sorry I hit you like this, but I did not punch you. I did not fucking deck you. I fucking was hitting you.
You can't
I don't know
deck
what
me.
the motion of my actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
This recording was also played back to her during her deposition, where you can see she clearly struggled to explain her way out of her lies.
Ms. Hurd, I'd like you to listen to what I'm about to play. Would you do that?
I then stood up. I don't even know if I said, I might have said, like, what the, whatever, because I just been hit in the head with the corner of the door.
I'm so sorry, I did not. I'm sorry.
And when I stood up,
Do you recognize the voices on that tape? Mm-hmm. And who are the people on that tape?
It's Johnny and I.
Okay. And is Johnny describing an act where you made a door go into his head?
I was trying to escape from a room where Johnny was attacking me. And in order to escape, I was trying to get onto the other side of the door, attempting to close the door, and he was attempting to get in despite my attempts to try and escape an assault.
Isn't it true that on this tape that was just played, you tell Johnny Depp you're sorry?
Yes.
Okay.
and then you clapped.
I remember hitting you as a response to the door thing.
Did you just tell Johnny Depp in that recording that I remember hitting you as a response to the door thing?
Yes, as he was trying to get into the door, I was trying, into the room, I was trying to escape in. He pushed the door into me, and I was trying to hit him by getting him out of the door to stay in the room.
And you told him in that tape recording that you hit him, correct?
I don't know what words I used in that. You can play it back if you want, but I don't remember exactly how long.
If you wouldn't mind, if you'll continue to listen.
Okay.
I'm really sorry about hitting you with the door or hitting your head.
Did you tell Johnny Depp at that time you were speaking to him that you were really sorry for hitting him with the door, hitting him?
I think in that recording I made it very clear that I was sorry that the door hit him while he was trying to get into the room I was escaping, or attempting to escape into.
Okay. So you told him in that excerpt that you hit him with the door but did not intend to hit him, correct? Did you say that?
I said whatever I said in that recording. I
Okay.
don't. When you play it for me, it's hard for me to remember.
Would you continue to listen to Exhibit Q?
Are these from the same day?
I reacted, but the door thing, I remember, I never did that. That wasn't on purpose. I might have done it on accident.
Okay. Let's say that was an accident. I then stood up. I don't even know if I said, I might have said, like, what the f, you know, whatever, because I just been hit in the head with the corner of the door.
I'm so sorry. I did not. I'm sorry.
And then I stood up. And then you clocked.
I remember hitting you as a response to the door thing.
That's exactly what I just told us.
And I'm really sorry about hitting you with the door or hitting your head. I did not mean to, nor...
You don't need to hit me in the head with the door, but you meant to punch me in the jaw.
I meant to hit you, and I did not do this thing with the door. I do remember, I did mean to hit you.
So that you didn't mean?
The door? No, God, no, I didn't.
But punching me in the jaw.
I didn't. Okay, I'm sorry.
So on the tape, you tell Johnny Depp that you did mean to hit him.
Objection. That's argumentative, and it misstates what the recording was.
And it also misrepresents what actually happened, which is him trying to get into a room I'm trying to keep him out of. And then he runs the door over my toes, trying to get into the room. I try to push him out of it, which is what the hit is referred to. And Johnny, whenever he was injured or touched, it always referred to it in these ways of punching or clocked or whatever. And whether you discussed it with him or not, the last thing you do in talking to him afterwards or trying to reconcile with him is to get into what the definition of those words mean to him.
Just say what
So
happened.
I never even addressed it. He would, if he was ever pushed, it was a close. He called it a cold clock. I mean, it was just very dramatic.
In addition to the admissions made by Amber in this phone call, Kevin Murphy, who was the estate manager of their place of residence at the time, states in his declaration that on an unspecified date, he was called up to the penthouse by Johnny right after Amber had assaulted him by throwing a remote control at his head. Mr. Murphy states that he observed a very obvious swelling lump and laceration on Johnny's forehead. Amber made further allegations against Johnny that allegedly took place on August and November of 2015. She alleges that she was physically assaulted by Johnny on both occasions, resulting in severe cuts and bruises throughout her body. Once again, she has failed to support these claims with any evidence, photographic or otherwise. And now we arrive at the 15th of December, 2015. On this day, Amber alleges that Johnny physically assaulted her multiple times in an incredibly vicious manner. Amongst other things, she alleges that he slapped her hard, grabbed her hair and pulled chunks of hair and scalp off her head, bashed her nose with a headbutt, pinned her to the bed, and punched her repeatedly in the head. She also alleges that the bed frame was splintered during the course of this violent episode and that there were indentations in the carpet where she was allegedly dragged. Amber has attached photographic evidence in support of her claims marked Exhibits 12 and 13. As per the evidence that is available to me, the photographs are not time and date stamped. So I don't even actually know when these photographs were taken. In her declaration, she never states when they were taken. Furthermore, Amber states that her friends Raquel and Melanie witnessed the aftermath of what had happened to her, and yet she has not provided any testimony from them in support of her allegations. In contrast, Johnny supplied photographic evidence of the injuries sustained by him on the same day. These photos were taken at the insistence of his bodyguard, and so not only did Johnny specifically state when these photographs were taken, but he also has a third party in the form of a security guard as witness to Johnny's claims. Alright, let's tackle the evidence that she submitted in support of this particular claim. Starting off with the splintered bed frame. It's interesting to note that in his declaration, Kevin Murphy states that upon being summoned to the penthouse on the 16th of December, so one day later, he did not observe any injuries or destruction to Amber's person or any of the property in the penthouse. When Amber called him up to the master bedroom upstairs, he observed that she was sitting on the edge of the bed crying. This means that he directly observed the bed, and yet he maintained that there was no damage done to the property. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate and briefly consider the fact that it could have been a different bedroom or a different bed altogether. However, Amber states in her declaration that Johnny dragged her upstairs to the bedroom and slammed her onto the bed, which was subsequently damaged. Kevin Murphy states in his declaration that Amber summoned him up to the bedroom, where she was sitting on the bed. It wouldn't be far-fetched and unreasonable, therefore, to assume that they were both referring to the same bed. So was the bed broken on the 15th and 16th of December, or was it broken later for the sake of taking a photograph? I'm gonna take this a notch further. Playing devil's advocate again, let's assume that the bed was indeed splintered as a result of the fight on the 15th of December 2015. In no way does that prove that Johnny physically assaulted Amber's person. He may have indeed splintered the bed by kicking it in anger. We've seen him take his anger out on inanimate objects before, such as in the TMZ video that was leaked. Kicking inanimate objects does not equate to physically assaulting a human being. Moving on to the clump of hair that Amber alleged Johnny ripped out of her head. Now, I'm not an expert in assessing where a clump of hair comes from simply by looking at it, so I'm not gonna speculate about whether it came from a hairbrush or whether it came from her hair or from someone else. However, Kevin Murphy does state in paragraph 9 of his declaration that he couldn't see any section of Amber's hair where a large chunk was missing. Amber didn't even offer to show him the injury on her scalp, and I'll tell you why this is important in a second. She did, however, show him a tuft of hair on the floor, claiming that Johnny had ripped it off her head. Doubting Amber's story due to a complete lack of visible injuries, Mr. Murphy proceeds to take a time and date stamped photo of the clump of hair on the floor. Later on, when details of the case became public, Mr. Murphy compared the photograph he took to the photo that Amber submitted to the court as evidence and was surprised to find that they did not match. Back to the point I made when I mentioned that Amber failed to show Mr. Murphy her scalp. I am in no way saying that just because someone fails to show someone else an injury, especially if that other person isn't a close friend or family member, that doesn't automatically mean that the injury does not exist. Being abused can be very humiliating. Johnny himself hid Amber's abuse for a long time, for example. However, the fact that Amber specifically called Mr. Murphy up to her bedroom so that he could observe her crying and so that she could tell him what Johnny had done to her, going as far as showing him the clump of hair on the floor, you would think that she would have then showed him the chunk of hair that was missing on her scalp to further support her claims, but she failed to do that. Which brings us to Amber's injuries. Amber claims to have suffered multiple visible injuries as a result of this incident. In particular, she claims that she was very bruised and was worried that she'd have a black eye or two the following day, along with a bruised nose. She further claims to have covered up the injuries with the assistance of Raquel and Melanie to cover up for Johnny. I already mentioned this, but again, a reminder, Raquel and Melanie did not provide supporting testimony in relation to this incident. In fact, we have two witness testimonies that directly refute Amber's claims. Firstly, Kevin Murphy. As mentioned earlier, he stated in his declaration that he did not observe any injuries on Amber. Specifically, he stated that Amber appeared to not have any makeup on during their long face-to-face conversation and that he saw no signs of injury whatsoever. The second witness is Samantha McMillan, who was Amber's makeup artist and stylist at the time. Ms. McMillan states in her declaration that she spent most of the 16th of December 2015 with Amber. Ms. McMillan saw Amber in good light, at close range, and without makeup throughout the day, and declares that she did not observe any visible marks, bruises, cuts, or injuries to Amber's face or any other part of her body. For all of these reasons, I submit that Exhibits 12 and 13 fail to prove that Johnny was physically abusive towards Amber on December 15, 2015. Amber also attached text messages that took place between her and her publicist at the time, Jody, as supporting evidence of her claims. These are marked Exhibit 15. In these messages, Amber tells Jody that she might not be able to make the James Corden show due to injuries that she sustained as a result of an accident. Once again, this evidence proves nothing. We know now that lying to people and government officials and having a general disregard for the law seems to be the norm for Amber. Simply sending a message to someone does not automatically make the contents of the message true. Furthermore, it is important to note that nowhere in the text message does she assign blame on Johnny. Finally, she attached another text message, one that took place between her and her best friend Raquel, marked Exhibit 16. Once again, her words and nothing more. Simply telling her best friend, who was complicit in Amber's lies by the way, that Johnny headbutted her does not make it true. For these reasons, I submit that Exhibits 15 and 16 both fail to demonstrate that Johnny was physically abusive towards Amber on the 15th of December, 2015. Alright, that's it for part 1 of this video. Part 2 will be out soon after part 1, I promise you, so hang on tight for that. Thank you so much once again for all the support that you've given me in the first video that I made covering this topic. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure to do so and hit that thumbs up button while you're at it. Thank you so much for watching. Hang on for part 2, and I'll catch you in a future video. Bye.